I couldn't sleep. Not because I had insomnia or anything like that. I just kept thinking about this weird theory I read online. Someone said that if you wake up at 3:17 a.m. every single night for a week, you'll start noticing things. Strange things. Things that are always there but we're too busy to see them during normal hours. I know what you're thinking. That sounds absolutely insane. And you're probably right. But I was bored. My life felt like it was on autopilot. Wake up, go to work, scroll through my phone, sleep, repeat. I needed something different. Something to shake things up. So I did it. I set an alarm for 3:17 a.m. Not 3:15. Not 3:20. Exactly 3:17. The post I read was very specific about the time. Something about the numbers and energy, and honestly I didn't really understand all of it. But I committed. 7 days straight. Day 1. The alarm went off and I genuinely thought about throwing my phone across the room. Everything in my body wanted to turn it off and go back to sleep. But I forced myself up. I sat on the edge of my bed in complete darkness. My apartment was silent. Not peaceful silent. That heavy, uncomfortable kind of silent where you can hear your own heartbeat. I grabbed my phone and opened the camera. I don't know why. I just felt like I should document this somehow. I took a picture of my dark living room. Nothing special. Just shadows and the faint glow from the streetlight outside. Then I went back to bed. It took me another hour to fall back asleep. My mind was racing with stupid thoughts. Did I lock the door? What was that sound? Why does my apartment feel different at night? Day 2. The alarm felt even worse. My body was already tired from the night before. I dragged myself out of bed again. This time I walked to the kitchen and poured myself some water. As I stood there drinking it, I noticed something. My neighbor's light was on. The one who lives directly across from me. I'd never seen their light on this late before. Or this early, I guess. I watched for a few minutes. Nothing happened. No movement. Just a light. A yellowish glow behind thin curtains. I wondered what they were doing up. Maybe they couldn't sleep either. Maybe they were working a night shift. Or maybe they were doing the same thing I was doing. Standing in the dark, looking out windows, wondering why they felt compelled to be awake at this ungodly hour. I took another picture on my phone. My dark kitchen with that single window glowing in the distance. Then I shuffled back to bed. This time I fell asleep faster. Maybe my body was just too exhausted to fight it. Day 3. I was starting to feel it now. That deep exhaustion that sits behind your eyes. But something weird happened. When the alarm went off, I was already awake. Not fully awake, but in that strange in-between state. Like my body knew it was coming. Like I was anticipating it somehow. I got up and did my usual walk around the apartment. That's when I heard it. Footsteps. Above me. Someone was walking around upstairs. Pacing back and forth. Slow, deliberate steps. I'd lived here for 2 years and never once heard anyone up there at this hour. The building was old, sure, but it was always quiet at night. I stood completely still and listened. The footsteps continued for exactly 3 minutes. I counted. 180 seconds of consistent pacing. Then stopped. Just like that. Complete silence again. My hands were shaking a little as I took a picture. I don't know what I expected to capture. It was just my ceiling. White paint with a small water stain in the corner that I'd been meaning to tell my landlord about. But I took it anyway. I needed to document this. To prove to myself later that it was real. I tried to go back to sleep, but I kept listening for the footsteps. They never came back. At least not that night. Day 4. I didn't want to do it anymore. I was tired. Really tired. The kind of tired where your body feels heavy and your thoughts move through mud. But I'd come this far. 3 days down, 4 to go. I could finish this. I had to finish this. The alarm went off and I noticed something immediately. I wasn't scared of the dark anymore. That sounds stupid, but it's true. The first few nights, the darkness felt oppressive. Like it was pressing down on me. Like something could be hiding in any corner. Now it felt normal. Familiar. Like I belonged in it. I walked to the window and looked outside. The streets were empty except for one person. A woman walking her dog. At 3:17 in the morning. Who walks their dog at 3:17 in the morning? I watched her pass under the streetlight. She moved slowly, almost like she was in a trance. The dog didn't pull or sniff around like dogs usually do. It just walked beside her in a straight line. Perfectly synchronized. They disappeared around the corner and I realized I'd been holding my breath. Something about the scene felt wrong. Not scary, just off. Like I was watching a performance. Like they were following a script. I took a picture of the empty street where they'd just been. The streetlight cast a perfect circle of orange light on the pavement. Nothing else. Just empty sidewalk. Went back to bed. Couldn't fall asleep for an hour. I kept seeing that woman and her dog in my mind. The mechanical way they moved. The complete silence of it all. Day 5. This is when things got really strange. The alarm went off but I was already sitting up in bed. I don't remember waking up. I wasn't in that half-asleep state either. I was just suddenly conscious at exactly 3:17. No grogginess. No confusion. Just awake. Alert. Like someone had flipped a switch in my brain. I walked into my bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. I looked terrible. Dark circles under my eyes. Pale skin. My hair was a mess. But my eyes looked different. More alert. More aware. Like I was seeing myself clearly for the first time in years. Like the person staring back at me was someone I'd forgotten existed. I heard the footsteps again. The same pacing pattern from upstairs. But this time I also heard something else. A low humming sound. It was coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. Not a mechanical hum like a refrigerator or air conditioning. This was different. Almost musical. Almost alive. I checked my phone to make sure it wasn't some weird notification. Nothing. The screen was black except for the time. 3:19 now. The humming continued for about a minute. I tried to follow it, to figure out where it was coming from. But every time I moved closer to one area, it seemed to shift. Like it was avoiding me. Then silence. Complete and total silence. The footsteps had stopped too. I hadn't even noticed when. I took a picture of my reflection in the mirror. Just to have something. Some proof that I was really here, really experiencing this. When I looked at it later that day, during my lunch break at work, I noticed something in the background. The bathroom door was slightly more open than I remembered. Just a crack. Maybe an inch or two. But I lived alone. I always closed doors. It was a habit from childhood. My mom always insisted on closed doors at night. I stared at that photo for 10 minutes. Zoomed in. Tried to see if there was anything else. Any other detail I'd missed. But it was just the door. Slightly open. Probably nothing. Probably just my exhausted brain making connections that weren't there. Day 6. I was beyond tired now. I existed in this fog where nothing felt completely real. Work felt like a dream. My co-workers' voices sounded muffled and distant. Conversations felt like they were happening to someone else. I'd nod and smile and respond, but I wasn't really there. The only time I felt truly present was at 3:17 a.m. I started to crave it, actually. That moment when the alarm went off. That sudden clarity. That feeling of being awake in a world that was asleep. It was like I had access to something nobody else did. A secret channel. A hidden frequency. The alarm went off and I got up immediately. No hesitation. My body moved on autopilot now. I walked through my entire apartment this time. Every room. Looking at everything like I'd never seen it before. The way shadows fell across my furniture. The strange patterns on the ceiling from the streetlights outside. The hum of the refrigerator that I never noticed during the day. That's when I found it. A small handprint on my kitchen window. From the inside. I lived on the 4th floor. Nobody could reach that window from outside. The building next to mine was too far away. There was no fire escape. No balcony. Nothing. The handprint was small. Child-sized. The fingers were spread out like someone had pressed their palm flat against the glass. But I didn't have kids. Nobody with kids had visited me recently. I tried to think back. Had my nephew been here last month? No, that was at my sister's house. Had I had my hands wet while looking out the window? Maybe I left the print myself. But it was too small. My hands were definitely bigger than that. I placed my palm next to it to compare. Not even close. I stood there staring at it for what felt like forever. My heart was pounding. My mouth was dry. I wanted to wipe it away but something stopped me. Some instinct. Some voice in my head saying don't touch it. Don't disturb it. This means something. Instead, I took a picture. The handprint was clearly visible in the photo. 5 small fingers and a palm. Perfectly preserved in the condensation or dust or whatever it was. I took several pictures from different angles. With flash. Without flash. Close up. Far away. Then I went to my bedroom. Turned on every single light. Checked the closet. Checked under the bed. Checked behind the shower curtain even though I'd walked past the bathroom 3 times already. Everything was empty. Everything was normal. I was alone. I didn't sleep for the rest of that night. I sat on my couch with all the lights on and watched the sky slowly turn from black to dark blue to gray to pink. I'd never been so happy to see sunrise. Day 7. The final day. I was honestly relieved it was almost over. But also disappointed. I'd gotten used to this routine. This secret world that existed while everyone else was asleep. Part of me didn't want it to end. Part of me wanted to know what would happen if I kept going. Week 2. Week 3. What would I discover then? But I was also terrified. The handprint had shaken me more than I wanted to admit. I kept checking the window throughout the day. It was still there. Still visible. A small reminder that something had happened. Something I couldn't explain. The alarm went off. I got up. I walked to my living room and sat on the couch in complete darkness. I didn't turn on any lights. Didn't check my phone. I just sat there and listened. Really listened. To everything. The footsteps started upstairs right on schedule. The same pacing pattern. Back and forth. Back and forth. I counted the steps this time. 23 steps in one direction. A pause. 23 steps back. Another pause. Over and over. The humming sound came back, louder this time. It felt like it was inside my head now. Not just in the room but in my skull. vibrating through my bones. I closed my eyes and tried to focus on it. Tried to understand it. Was it a frequency? A pattern? Music? Then I heard a car drive by outside, which was unusual because my street is always dead at this hour. I heard the engine. Heard the tires on pavement. Heard it slow down as it passed my building. Then speed up again. Disappear into the distance. Then I heard something that made my blood run cold. A knock. 3 soft knocks on my door. Tap tap tap. Gentle. Almost polite. I froze. Nobody knew I was awake. Nobody should be at my door at 3:17 in the morning. My friends knew better than to show up unannounced. My family lived 3 hours away. The mailman didn't come until afternoon. There was no reason for anyone to be outside my apartment. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Just waited. Maybe I'd imagined it. Maybe it was the pipes. Old buildings make weird sounds. Everyone knows that. Another 3 knocks. Softer this time. Almost gentle. Almost tentative. Like whoever was out there was being careful not to wake anyone else. Like they knew I was already awake. Like they'd been waiting for me. I forced myself to stand up. Forced myself to walk to the door. My legs felt like they were made of lead. Every step took effort. Every breath was deliberate. I reached the door and pressed my eye to the peephole. The hallway was empty. Completely empty. Just the ugly brown carpet and the flickering fluorescent light that had been broken for weeks. No person. No shadow. Nothing. But I could feel something on the other side of that door. A presence. A weight. Like someone was standing just out of view. Just to the side of the peephole. Waiting. I backed away slowly. My hand was on the doorknob and I realized it was unlocked. Had I forgotten to lock it? I always locked it. Every single night. It was automatic. But there it was. Unlocked. The deadbolt turned to the open position. I locked it quickly. The sound of the bolt sliding into place was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. Then I stood there for another minute. Listening. Waiting for another knock. It never came. I took a picture of the door from inside my apartment. The cheap wood. The brass doorknob. The deadbolt now safely locked. Then I went back to my bedroom. Locked that door too. Sat on my bed with every light turned on and waited for sunrise. When morning finally came, I looked at all the pictures I'd taken over the week. I'd convinced myself they were just normal photos. Documentation of a weird experiment. But looking at them all together, I noticed something. In every single picture, there was a shadow. Not my shadow. A different one. Small and distorted. And in each photo, it was closer than it had been in the previous one. In the first picture of my living room, the shadow was barely visible. Just a dark spot in the far corner that could have been anything. In the picture of the kitchen, it was near the doorway. In the bathroom mirror selfie, it was right behind me. I hadn't noticed it before. I'd been looking at my own reflection. But there it was. A dark shape. Vaguely human. In the last picture I took, the one of my bedroom door, the shadow was right at the threshold. Like it was waiting to be invited in. Like it knew the rules. Like it needed permission. I deleted the alarm. Haven't said it since. It's been 3 weeks now and I'm finally starting to sleep normally again. But sometimes I still wake up at night. And when I check the time, it's always 3:17. Not 3:16. Not 3:18. Always 3:17. The footsteps upstairs still happen. I hear them almost every night now, even though I'm usually asleep. They've become part of my background noise. Like the traffic outside or the pipes rattling. Just another sound in an old building. The neighbor's light across the way is on more often than not. I see it when I get up to use the bathroom in the middle of the night. Always on. Always that same yellowish glow. I've never seen anyone in the window. Never seen the curtains move. Just the light. And that handprint on my kitchen window. I finally wiped it away. I couldn't stand looking at it anymore. I used glass cleaner and paper towels and scrubbed until the window was spotless. But the next morning, there was another one. On the other side of the glass. From the outside. 4 stories up. I haven't cleaned that one. I don't think I will. Some part of me is afraid of what might replace it. I don't know what I opened up during those 7 days. I don't know what started paying attention to me when I started paying attention to that hour. But I know this much. There's a reason most people are asleep at 3:17 a.m. There's a reason we're not supposed to be awake when the world is that quiet. Because we're not alone in that silence. We never were. We're just usually smart enough to sleep through it. My sleep schedule is still messed up. Even though I'm not setting alarms anymore, my body wakes up on its own. Usually around 3 a.m. Sometimes I manage to fall back asleep before 3:17. Sometimes I don't. Those nights when I'm awake at exactly that time, I stay in bed. I don't get up. I don't look around. I just close my eyes and pretend to sleep until it passes. I told my friend about the experience. Just one friend. Someone I trust. Someone who wouldn't think I was crazy. She listened to the whole story and then asked if I'd tried looking up the apartment upstairs. Finding out who lived there. I hadn't even thought of that. So I did. I checked the building directory in the lobby. Apartment 512. Right above mine. The name listed was someone I'd never heard of. I waited around one evening, hoping to run into them. Ask them casually if they ever had trouble sleeping. If they found themselves pacing at night. But I never saw them. Days went by. Then weeks. I never once saw anyone go in or out of apartment 512. I asked my landlord about it. He looked confused. Said that apartment had been empty for 6 months. Previous tenant moved out and they were doing renovations. Planning to rent it out next month. Empty. The apartment was empty. But I still hear the footsteps. I still think about doing it again. Setting that alarm. Seeing what happens next. Part of me wants to know more. Wants to understand what exists in those dark hours that we're not supposed to witness. What was that shadow in my photos? What knocked on my door? Whose handprint is on my window? But a bigger part of me knows that some things are better left alone. Some doors shouldn't be opened. Some patterns shouldn't be broken. I broke a pattern by waking up at 3:17 for 7 days. I interrupted something. And whatever it was, it noticed. I learned something during those 7 days. The world we see during daylight hours is only half the story. The other half happens when we're unconscious, when we're vulnerable, when we're not watching. And maybe that's for the best. Maybe we're not equipped to handle both halves at once. There's a membrane between the waking world and whatever exists in those deep night hours. Most people never pierce it. They sleep right through it. Safe and unaware. But I pierced it. I pushed through. And now I can't unknow what I know. I can't unsee that shadow getting closer in each photo. I can't unhear those footsteps from an empty apartment. I can't unfeel that presence on the other side of my door. These things are part of me now. Part of my reality. My friend asked me if I regret it. Honestly, I don't know. I'm terrified, sure. I sleep with lights on more often than I'd like to admit. I check my locks 5 times before bed. I avoid looking out windows after dark. But I also feel more alive than I have in years. More present. More aware. Before this, I was sleepwalking through my life. Going through motions. Existing but not really living. Now everything feels sharper. More real. Even my fear feels more authentic than the numbness I felt before. But I'll tell you this. If you ever decide to try it, if you ever decide to set that alarm for 3:17 a.m. for 7 days straight, be prepared. Be prepared for what you might see. What you might hear. What might start seeing you back. Because once you open your eyes to that world, once you become part of that quiet darkness, it doesn't just let you go. It remembers you. It knows you now. You've made yourself visible to things that usually remain invisible. And it's always waiting right there, just on the other side of your sleep, at exactly 3:17 a.m. Every single night. Whether you're awake to acknowledge it or not. The difference is, now you know it's there. You can feel it. Even when you're asleep, somewhere deep in your subconscious, you know. That's the real curse of those 7 days. Not what I saw or heard. But the knowing. The constant awareness that the world is more than what we see during business hours. That there are layers of reality we usually never access. And once you've accessed them, you can't go back to blissful ignorance. Sometimes I catch myself missing that ignorance. That simple belief that nighttime was just daytime with the lights off. But those days are gone. I'm part of something else now. Something I don't fully understand. Something I probably never will. So think carefully before you set that alarm. Think about whether you really want to know what's waiting in those hours when the rest of the world sleeps. Because once you know, once you've seen even a glimpse of it, you carry it with you forever. The alarm is deleted from my phone. But in my mind, it's always set. Always counting down to 3:17 a.m. Always waiting for that moment when the barrier between worlds grows thin. When the things that hide in darkness feel brave enough to knock. And I'm always listening.